Welcome to Notepad. I'm your host, Ibrahim Sani. As they say, death and taxes are the only two things that we can't avoid from. So today, instead of interviewing death, I'm interviewing something very closely related to that, LHDN. Joining me is the Deputy CEO of Tax Operation, Datuk Mohd Nizom Sairi, here to discuss some of the pertinent issues regarding income tax and, of course, taxation in general. Datuk Nizom, thanks for taking the time to speak with us.
Thank you, Ibrahim, for having me here, having LHDN giving us this platform today.
There's a lot of issues regarding tax, and over the past two or three weeks since the budget was introduced, we've talked about a lot of elements of tax, including that of SST and GST. Some punters were actually even thinking that GST could be soft introduced in the budget, but we didn't see that coming. Let's talk a little bit about the benefits of the pro and con of progressive tax like GST and SST, and where does LHDN fit in this picture?
Yeah, okay. Thank you once again. Actually, GST or SST, this tax related to consumption, especially GST that we have abolished since 2 years ago, meaning every time you pay for something that you consume, you buy, you purchase, you pay the tax, as opposed to income tax, which is more direct to the person earning the income. For GST, it is actually under the care of the customs department in this country.
All right, and because of that, do you feel that one system has merit over the other, or do you feel that this is a system where it's quite sensible to be done later on, but not now?
Yeah, I think generally the imposition of consumption tax like GST, it's targeted at, the target is more widespread in terms of everybody is covered, whoever the consumption, from young, even you don't have an income, if you have to pay to buy something for your consumption, there will be tax in it. As compared to income tax, it is actually for those who earn income, and that too, at certain threshold only that you will be taxed. It's more direct to the person.
Let's talk a little bit about the expected revenue that is to be collected for this year by LHDN. There were some talks that it might not be hitting that target just yet. We've had the Finance Minister talking about the urgency for the LHDN to actually try to achieve its revenue target. What's the story there?
Yeah, as we know, it was tabled in Parliament recently under the 2021 budget, and from that we can see actually 143 billion of gross tax collection, that is from income tax, direct taxes, is expected to be collected in the year 2021. It's a challenging time, yes, but I think the Ministry of Finance, when they come up with the budget, they have actually taken into account the expected or projected growth and what revenue can we expect from the economy next year.
Okay, but right now the tax collection target is 127 billion. Are we still on
for
track
this year?
Yeah.
The net revenue collection for this year, we still have a month to go. Today is last day of November, so we still have December to go. We're still positive. We're hoping that we will get there by the end of the year.
Okay.
We'll see.
That's the most important thing right now, because it basically talks about some of the items that you can actually do to close that gap right now. One of them is, of course, excess taxes that needs to be paid by taxpayers. There are still some issues regarding the estimated paid tax versus tax installment advance through CP204, CP500, the normal YBhg kind of deduction through the monthly taxation deduction. Are we, as a taxpayer watching this show, are we paying enough tax for now, or do we need to actually shore up that kind of gap?
When you ask the question of are we paying enough, do you mean in comparison to other countries, or
no,
as a taxpayer?
Yeah, as a taxpayer,
Okay. The ones you mentioned, CP204 for company, CP500 for individual businesses, and the monthly tax deduction for the salary earners like you and I, these are actually advanced taxes. We pay the tax as and when we earn it, sort of. So for year 2020, for this year, for example, the income that we earn this year, there is an estimated on an advance tax that is paid as we earn it. So if we earn a salary of November, at the end of it, part of it is actually deducted for the tax purpose. That is expected to be your tax liability for the current year. But you'll only know about the actual amount that you have to pay after all the deductions that you are entitled to and so forth, when you file in the return form next year. For example, for individual, for a salary earner, their due date for the filing will be in April. So by that time only you will know your exact amount of tax you are supposed to pay for 2020. So that amount compared to what you have paid in advance in 2020 will be the difference whether you have excess paid, which you will be entitled for a refund, or you are paid a bit less than what you should be paying, which means you have to pay additional balance of tax.
Okay. Based on this kind of structure, this is not new. We've done this for decades.
Yeah.
Why is there a need for us to be reiterating this point yet again?
Just
Why
to
now?
note, because especially we've been hearing, especially at the individual levels, they're saying, I have already paid my tax. Why should I need to submit my return form again to report again my income? So these are two things. Like I said, the payment is actually something that is in advance. It's not your final tax for the year. In fact, in many cases for individuals, once you file in and put in all your claims for reliefs and all that, you'll be entitled for a refund for many people. So it's actually beneficial for the taxpayer to know about this, keep their records and everything. But for businesses, either sole prop individual or companies, it varies from case to case because it is based on estimate. Like for example, for the year 2020, the estimate was based on your previous performance. It was done in 2019, right? So it was based on the previous performance. So business change, especially this year, as you can see. So this estimate that was made last year for the advanced tax, for corporate body, for companies, they have two opportunities to sort of change or vary the amount, which is in the 6th month and in the 9th month of the year. So they can change their estimate. As I have said, it is an estimate anyway for business. A lot of things will happen, as in salary where the amount is fixed every month. So it's more accurate in sense.
Yeah, but you see, this is the thing. Being in charge of tax operations, this year must be a bit different from your. I was about to say this is going to be hell for you, but this has to be some sort of an impact towards how LHDN runs its operations, from the deadline that has been extended month after month. The 3 different categories broadly: the sole prop, the business owners. How is that going to affect collection at the end of the day? Versus the operations that you guys do day to day?
It's a huge impact, as in any other economic sectors, as you can see. So it obviously impacted the tax collection for the year. As far as LHDN, our role during this unprecedented year, for the event that we have faced, we played a role of helping the taxpayer in the form of we even have something similar like a moratorium that the bank has. Back in April, May and June, we gave a 3-month moratorium for the tax payment for the current year to be deferred later on. And in some sectors we even extended until the end of the year. So that's how we have been playing our role. And this, of course, definitely will impact, as you have said, impact the total collection for the year, but we just have to do it because we realize, businesses especially do need this kind of a breather room for them to, get back on their feet.
Does this signal that LHDN is a little bit nimble in terms of trying to accommodate what needs to be done instead of being rigid?
Yes. We listen to the voice also of the public. Also, the government realize it. So we talk with the policyholder, the stakeholders, the government to see what are the things, the measures that we can implement. Because we have to talk with the Minister of Finance. there is on one hand a need of the government for revenue to spend,
Definitely.
to support the
growth of the economy.
Yeah, growth of the economy. And here we have to balance it with what the taxpayers are currently facing.
And capability to make payment.
True.
One item that needs to be discussed is, of course, the deadlines that is going to be imposed on the taxpayers. Excess taxes on difference must be paid 30 days from the due date of tax lodgement.
Yeah.
And we've had 30th April for individuals, 30th June for sole prop, and 7 months after closing the P&L for companies.
Yeah.
Are these I guess deadline sensible?
They got
moving forward?
2-month extension for current year. For example, the one in April, they were given until June. The one in June given until August, and for companies in July they given 3 months in fact, because a lot of financial reports have to be finalized and so forth. As a result of, we realized during the MCO, a lot of people are working from home, even preparing final reports by the accountants. They face some difficulty in it. So the dates has been actually they are given 3 months extra time, and with that too, for those who really in difficulties to complete their financial statements, they can come forward and ask for a further extension.
Okay, so
we'll examine case by case.
This is the thing that this is the crux of this interview.
Yeah.
If taxpayers can't fulfill the tax obligation within the time that is being allotted to them, what recourse do they have? Do they have the ability to speak to you and,
Yes, we are here actually to accommodate, to facilitate, to service whatever the needs of the taxpayers. We'll have to, only in certain area we will give a blanket, like 3 months extension for everybody, which we feel the majority would have enough or sufficient time, that 3 months, to prepare whatever they need to prepare. But for those, we realize also there are cases where they need more time for whatever reason that they are facing. So they can come and see us and
are there any case studies that you want to share with us to make us understand the kind of company, the kind of people that is requiring some numbers, even the people that have applied and have been granted extension?
I guess generally the bigger the corporation or the business is, the more time sometimes they need because of the various reports that they have. They are not only impacted internally for their business operations. Some of these companies, sometimes the reports are by, especially for external auditors involved. So that's a separate entity altogether.
Yeah,
so everybody is affected, as you can see. So. So that's why we will be here to actually to talk to anybody who needs any kind of assistance from us, more time needed for their case. So we will look at the case by case basis.
Okay, it seems like GLCs and MNCs are part of this conversation of asking for tax liability deferment.
Not all of them. Not all of them. Some actually, the 3 months given is enough for them. Actually, why we use 3 months is also inconsistent with what the amount of time that the Companies Commission has given to companies to submit their annual reports.
Of course, SE has also been granted the same
so
thing.
once that 3 months is sufficient for you to prepare your financial report for the Companies Commission, that's the same report that they will need to actually compute their tax. So in most cases, they don't need the extra time unless, in the case where they need more, it means that they also need more time to prepare their final account or annual account to be submitted to.
Okay. We'll take a short break before continuing conversation with LHDN. When we come back, we'll discuss a little bit more about the consequences if you don't pay your taxes. We'll be right back. Welcome back. We are with LHDN today. We're speaking about some of the tax operations that are currently happening with the tax body. Of course, we're also talking about the kind of liabilities that is going to be imposed upon us if we fail to fulfill our obligation to pay tax. Let's talk a little bit more about some of the implications of tax liabilities that are not being fulfilled.
Yeah, okay. You have various obligations to pay. For example, the advance tax payment that I mentioned earlier for the current year, and at the end of at the filing date, if you have any balance of tax, you also have to pay that. Or if you impose additional tax for whatever reason, which an additional notice of assessment is issued, you have 30 days from that notice to pay and all that. So these are the required dates given or periods given for the taxpayers to pay whatever amount is due. If they fail or do not fulfill or do not pay by the deadline given, they will be subject to an increased amount of 10% from whatever the amount is due on that date.
So a penalty.
Yes, so it's called an increased amount of the tax. Yeah.
So this
by
is
10%.
So a carrot and stick approach has to be discussed here when the new government took over in 2018. Not this current government, but the Pakatan Harapan government. They introduced a moratorium in a way where those that have deferred taxes are given amnesty and they were able to fulfill their past tax obligations. And I would call that the carrot. This would be one of the approach where if you increase something by 10%, that's called the stick.
Yeah. You're referring to the Special Voluntary Disclosure Program, which we had in 19...
From a collection perspective, which one works?
Okay, from collections perspective, actually the payment, even for this Special Voluntary Disclosure Program, was actually when you come forward to voluntarily declare whatever amount you think or you know that you want to declare that you have under-declared in the past. So once you come forward with the amount we agreed, the notice issued, and you have to pay, you have the 30 days to pay in terms of payment, actually. So, and the penalty, 10% mentioned then, was actually on the amount that was declared to be underpaid in the previous years.
Yeah, but from a taxman's perspective, which one coughs up the more cash in terms of giving amnesty or voluntary admission of taxpayers versus penalties?
Well, if you're talking about revenue,
yes.
We are more looking at, actually when we plan for revenue and all that, we don't include whatever penalty that we expect to get in that estimate. Like I mentioned earlier, we look at the economy, the expected potential economy, and what contribution from the economy in terms of tax, because we learn from the historical data, right? So we don't include penalty as a source of revenue, in fact.
All right.
So if we could, actually, if there's no penalty, we don't need to impose penalty, that's even a better sign for us, because that shows a higher compliance among all the taxpayers. That's all we are interested in, to maintain a very high compliance level.
Speaking of which, how do we stack up in terms of related economies when it comes to tax compliance?
Yeah.
Are we really high in terms of tax compliance? Are we
It
low?
is something that's quite difficult to actually just pinpoint the figure or the amount, but studies has been released and you know, it's actually sometimes classified into the level of economy you are, but like for our country, the estimates of this, they call it tax gap, yeah? What amount of tax the economy should be generating, and what's actually collected.
Okay.
So this gap, for developing economies like our country, the estimate is somewhere between 20 to 30%. So that's how difficult it is to actually pinpoint, because of
and other countries, are they?
Yeah, so like in advanced economy, be between 10 to 15%.
Is it because of progressive taxes that are in place in most economies?
Contributing factors are a lot. Among them is the law itself. Is it too complicated, easy to understand? Also, in terms of the overall infrastructure in the economy, the size of you've heard about shadow economy and all
again
that.
and again.
That is under the radar, sort of. So, in advanced economy, because a lot more things are actually on the formal side, as compared to the informal sectors, sort of. So, the more,
but digitization,
the bigger the size under the shadow economy would be, the higher, of course, obviously, the rate of the tax gap.
Let's talk a little bit more about shadow economy, because when the finance minister presented the budget, another element that we were eyeing on would be on trying to touch a little bit more on the shadow economy.
Correct.
Are we not doing that enough?
Yes, it's an ongoing thing. As you can see, this is actually through the continuous enforcements that we have in place, tracing legal or illegal businesses that are unreported or undeclared to us. So it's a continuous thing. But I think one of the main thing that the government is actually embarking on in order to reduce the size of this informal or shadow economy is actually to make more and more business transaction above board and easier to trace, which means to increase more payments in the form of online payment or e-payment rather than using cash. As you can imagine, it's difficult. Cash transactions are something that is very difficult to actually trace because it's cash. Once whatever cash from me to you, I mean, 1 year down the road, nobody can actually.
Let's talk one more item before we end this interview, which is another item that we did not see in the budget, which is windfall tax.
Yeah.
There's a lot of conversations whether or not some companies, Top Glove, Hartalega, you name it, Kosan Rubber, that industry, should be imposed upon a windfall tax, the same thing that we saw a decade ago when it comes to palm oil. What's your view on this?
I read about what was said by the finance minister on this issue, and I totally agree because, well, naturally the tendency is, in difficult times like this, one sector that is making a lot of profit more than the usual times, you tend to, why don't you pay more? Because, it's everybody is suffering, but you are actually benefiting sort of from this situation. But our tax system is in such a way that it is progressive, meaning if you earn more, you pay more already. So subjecting those who earn more to pay even at a higher rate could give rise to a sort of opposite or negative perception on especially potential investors here. If you want to make a decision which country you want to invest in, the ones that have imposed more taxes would definitely be lower on your list of choices, right, to invest.
So 25% corporate tax is quite low.
But in this region, it is actually not that low because, as you know, Singapore is actually 17%, and many countries in the region actually impose at 20%. I don't have the, but you can go and check. Ours is not that low, but it's competitive enough. But if
if the interest of getting investors critical, shouldn't we lower the corporate tax altogether? Or
there has been talk about that every year. The only thing now,
but we've seen only bits and pieces, like in Iskandar, for instance, it's 17. Pardon me, 13, 17, something like that, instead of 26 or 25%. Well, why can't we just do that?
So it's a balance of what the government needs in terms of revenue. I think it would cost somewhere in the neighborhood of 2 to 3 billion for every percentage of reduction in the tax rate, and so based on the historical data, we would be able to tell the government. So, say the government is thinking about reducing from 24 to 23%. What would it cost, or what amount of revenue would be lost? So based on historical data, we will be able to tell.
Okay.
So these are the things that the government looked at to be considered before the decision is actually made, whether to raise or to lower the tax rate, be it corporate or individual.
I don't have the data on those watching this show being taxpayers or not.
Yeah.
But I'm sure there's a lot of those that are watching currently our conversation, they're taxpayers.
Yeah.
What would be some of the messages that you want to share with them?
Well, again, you started the program rightfully. Only two things certain in life: death and taxes.
Yeah.
So you know that something is certain. You should actually, give it enough attention so you don't get in trouble at the end of the day.
Yeah.
It's not our pleasure to look at people being penalized unnecessarily for not fulfilling or complying with the law or whatever regulations as far as tax is concerned. So we are here actually to make the experience of paying taxes or whatever is due from you under the law as pleasant as possible. If that can happen, then I guess for me personally, that would be my dream. I don't know. I hope I live to see that day.
No offense to you. You're a nice guy. LHDN is a nice organization, but dealing with taxes are...
True.
I'd rather do something else, put it that way. But thank you very much for taking the time to speak with us, Datuk. That was Datuk Mohd Nizom bin Sairi. He is the Deputy CEO of Tax Operations at LHDN. If you've missed any part of this interview, just head on to astroawani.com, look for a notepad over there. Plenty of interviews like this can be found there. If you want to learn more about how to pay taxes, just go to hasil.gov.my. There are a lot of resources for you to learn your resources there as well. Until then, thanks very much for watching. See you next time.